Mick Jagger, the guitar, you know what it is. It's a flagship show time. Hey, everybody, Josh the Wild Prop Principal of Memorial Pathway Academy and Garland ISD, Garland, USA, to ready to rock and roll. Taking this time, reflection. Some of us got out a couple of weeks ago. Some of us are barely getting out right now. Doesn't matter. But at that time of PD, that time of self reflection, and most importantly, that me time, it's crucial that we take that into consideration because you cannot fill someone else's cup if you have not filled it yourself. So take this time to re or watch this, see it later on, tag it, like it, share it, because you know what? All of these tools, we're going to need them for 23, 24. It ain't going to get easier. If
Nah.
you're in the middle of hiring right now, you know it's not going to get easier. So if you are in Alaska, if you are in Hawaii, if you are in Maine, or you are in Florida, or anywhere in the 48 middle, come on. Come on. Hey, Iowa, I need you. I haven't heard from you. Hey, South Dakota, I need you. Come on down. But you know what? Ultimately, we're all in it together because it's all about making sure that our kids become the best version of themselves because they're the future of this beautiful country. What do you think about that, Dean Packard in Massachusetts?
Hey, Josh Tovar, outstanding job once again. Coast to coast, we look for the best and the brightest people in education to bring to you every single week, man. And I just love this stuff because you know what, Josh? Every Sunday night, every Thursday night, I get a little bit better as a person, as a leader, and as an educational guru just by talking to the people who are in the trenches making what I call the boat wake of positivity and just in growth, man. Great stuff. Hey, everybody, my name is Dean Packard, one of the co-founders of Unlock the Middle. And it's great to be here tonight, Josh. Great to see you as well. And again, we're going coast to coast, East Coast to West Coast, down to the Gulf of Mexico, up to Canada, and beyond, man. I'll tell you, that's what excites me most about this type of technology that we have. And more importantly, bringing in the great personalities that we have that just want to make everybody better. How are you, man? It's great to see you, man. I haven't seen you in a couple of days. And things okay?
Yeah, everything's good right now. Just I don't know, like I told you, our campus is getting asbestos cleared out. So it's one of those things that when you work in such a modern building, you have to worry about
Wait a
asbestos
second,
clearing that
asbestos and
out.
modern. Let me just put
Right.
those two together for 1 second. All
But
right, maybe I don't
but
get it.
it's one of those things that being sitting in our chairs, we have to face when you walk into a seasoned building, an old building, whatever semantical term
Yeah,
you want to use,
I like
and
seasons.
it goes with it. And so I don't know, how's your building going to be? Is it one of the young ones, old ones?
Totally renovated where I'm going. Our building that I'm in right now at the middle school was built in 2000, so 24 years old, and the roof is just starting to leak a lot, and we have a roof project going on. But the building that I'm going to totally renovated. It's state of the art, man. So many great things. I'm blessed. I'm blessed to be amongst some great teachers. I'm blessed to be amongst a great superintendent, and just a great functioning team that's just ready to rock and roll. And they thought that I might be their guy, so I'm kind of pumped about that, Josh. So again, this is my last full week at Charlton Middle School after 21 years. So on Friday, I'll say goodbye. I'll drop the mic. I'll hand over the torch to somebody else. And on Monday of next week, I'll start my new venture. So I'm really excited about that, man.
So you're still at the middle school right now?
Yeah, I am. This will be my last week finishing up. Yep. I got to see the key here, guys, and this is very important. If you leave a job, you make sure you leave the job 100% ready for the next person that comes. You don't leave anything unturned. You make sure that you hand the keys to somebody and say, here it is. The Porsche's ready to drive. Go, take it and go. And that's the only thing that's fair to do for both the staff and the students. And again, I'm super excited. I don't know who my successor is going to be, but I'm looking forward to at least meeting the person and saying, hey, here it is. Don't
But
screw it up.
but you have no kids right now, right?
No, the kids are out. Kids are out, which is good. Yeah, the kids are out, which is really good.
Well, that must be a New England thing. And if we're talking about New England, then that means we're talking about our guest.
That
Hey,
is right. Lewis, let's bring Lewis in because you know what? I'd sit and talk to you all day, but Lewis is a little more important than both you and me tonight, Josh. So Luis Torres, welcome to the show. Glad to have you here, my friend. I'll tell you what, we're going to get right into this, Luis. Tell the audience a little bit about yourself, your origin, your story, kind of how you've kind of gotten to where you are, not only as an author, but as a TED Talk speaker, somebody who's just making ripples across the nation. So again, welcome. I'm going to close my mouth now.
Yeah, my name is Luis Torres. I'm a principal here in the Bronx, New York. I've been a principal for 18 plus years. Same school. I've been in education over 30 years. Now I'm an OG, as people want to call me now, OG. But it all started for me when I was going to high school and I had a guidance counselor. They called them guidance counselors back then, and the guidance counselor told me I would not be successful in college. That I should join the military, and I wound up joining the military because I didn't know any better. And while I'm in the military, I'm out there ready to go to the Iraqi war, and I'm saying to myself, why am I here? Like, I should have been able to decide what I wanted to do in life. So I wound up, long story short, coming back and getting 4 college degrees to prove that guidance counselor wrong. And ever since, my mission has been to make sure that children can reach their potential, and no one should tell any child what they can and cannot do in life.
Absolutely agree with that, man. I love the fact that you've been somewhere for 18 years. We don't see that anymore. I'm leaving somewhere after 20 years. So I get what you're saying. The roots are deeply established. And I'll tell you what, and I'm sure you're just chugging along because you wouldn't be there if you weren't. And I love that. I love to hear that kind of story. So great stuff right there. Josh.
Awesome. Great saludos, Jefe. Jefe's in the house.
Yes.
Fantastic Four, Principal Cafele. He's in the house. Greetings. Hey, and we can't dance like you, Jefe, so we're going to keep asking questions. Hey, Luis, real quick. You know what? You just practically answered my question right now. So let's and I believe in what you said because I believe in proving people wrong. That's my fire. That's my gas. And so my fuel, my space, the shuttle. So I ask you, who motivated you specifically to become an educator? And right now, who's the person that keeps you going? Who do you see that says, "Vámonos duro"?
Yeah, so again, my guidance counselor, I always call her my greatest motivational speaker. She motivated me more than anybody. I wish she was still alive till today so I could just go back and pass her a copy of each of my degrees. I would love to just hand it to her. But now my motivation right now is my youngest daughter. Like, I want to make sure she grows up in a world that is worth living. And I always tell people, if we don't make this world better than when we got here, we failed, right? So my motivation is my youngest daughter and all the children I serve. I serve the poorest congressional district in the country, not only the city, but the country. And to serve a community like that, I have to have a big heart to make sure all my children have somewhere that they can be successful in life.
Well, awesome. Thank you for that service. And you know what? You're a tough cookie, man, because you know what? I think all of us on this call, we're over 30 years in the business, and you know what? And we still keep on doing it for kids. And we commend you, salute you for all the dedication. We're not as old as that guy over there in the corner. Because that guy's like really old, but you
Come
know
on,
what?
wise guy. Come on, I shaved the gray out of my beard. You can't see any of it right now. I call it seasoned. Seasoned, Josh. Seasoned. Come on. You know
Gotcha.
what? I've earned every one of those lightened shaded hairs on my head. So just leave it right there. Hey, Louis, quick question for you. How can we match the needs of the community with the resources you have in our organizations today? Think about that for a second. How do we match that? Because I'll tell you what, student needs, teacher needs, off the charts. Funding is never always there like we like it. So what do we do, man? How do we make it happen?
So you must have read my book, right? I do this process called community matching, right? What you got to do is you got to take the resources you have in your school, and then you have to take the needs of your community, and you start to match it. And wherever there are gaps, you have to figure out how to fill those gaps, right? During the pandemic, a lot of this became very evident, right? Because, these inequities were not a product of the pandemic. They've existed forever, right? So during the pandemic, we realized the health disparities that exist. Fortunately, I've been doing this work so long now that I had addressed a lot of these needs. So I have an actual hospital in the school with a nurse, dentist, psychologist, ophthalmologist, every is that you could talk about exists in my school because I needed to make sure that when those children were getting sick, we had rapid testing going on. We had immunizations in the school. We had every kind of service provided in the school. But it all starts with you looking at your resources, matching them to the needs in your community, and then filling those gaps. And I tell people, your school should almost look like a mall, right? Like whatever the community needs should be provided within your school. Use your spaces more strategically, and create partnerships. It's all about creating partnerships, and establishing partnerships is probably one of the most important things you can do, because when that funding dries up, you can always count on a partner.
I mean, great. I mean, we call that completing the puzzle from a leadership lens. And I'll tell you what, every community is a little bit different based upon their needs. And I love that you said that. You know, out of all the years that I've been doing this, I never thought of it that way, Louis. And again, it makes practical sense to utilize resources in the best interest of what your community needs. So great stuff right there.
You know what? There's not enough time right now, Luis, for you to explain to a first year principal that just arrived in an area. Like the place where I arrived from, here in El Paso, I had trailers next to the wall, right next to Ciudad Juarez. I had ratty old trailers where all the workers would live there and my students would come from there. And so it's a situation where us as building administrators, we want what you have. It'll take 10 hours. We don't have 10 hours. But for a brand new administrator in Iowa, in Kansas, that wants to establish a hospital and in IST, how do you get started with those MOUs? How do you get started with those relationships? What will be the ball that starts rolling with that?
First off, I always tell new principals, it's okay to leave your office, right? Principals come in and they want to stay in their office and they don't want to go around. You know, they tend to be tied down to their office. It's okay to stay. It's also okay to leave your school building, right? And see what's around, what resources exist in the community, you know, and also look at your staff. There are people on your staff that have great relationships already pre-established. So, you know, you got to know who your staff is. You got to know your community. You know, for a long time, I had a bilingual program in my school because I had a large Spanish population. But as the population shifted, it became more and more African from Ghana and Gambia. But as a school principal early on, I realized, you know, the bilingual classes were not matching the needs of my community. So I had to advocate to start shifting my resources to meet the needs of the African community. And you know, it's funny, when I started doing that, the Hispanics thought I was racist towards Hispanics. And I said, what am I? I'm Puerto Rican. Like, you know, I was like, how can I be racist towards my own people? But, you know, the reality is, you know, the community that surrounds the school should match the community within the school. And you know, you build those relationships, you get those resources. But early on, you just got to start. I always tell people, my first year, I just sat back and watched and observed everything. And then I took notes. Then my second year is when I really started to do the community matching work and started to bring in those resources.
So
Oh, go ahead, Josh.
I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
So us at the campus level, whether it be the teachers, whether it be administrators, how can we distinguish between the wants and the needs of a campus?
Oh, that's a chapter in my book, man. I always tell people you got to know wants versus needs. You know, as a principal, you might want a beautiful school. You want a nice smelling school, well painted hallways and things like that. But the need might be a brand new cafeteria, right? You know, sometimes the wants, you know, are things that we want, but what you actually need has to be what is going to have the greatest impact on your community, right? Is a nicely painted wall more important than having a health clinic in the school? Maybe not, you know. So you have to start identifying those things that you desperately need, and then the wants will eventually come once you address all the needs. You know, if your bathrooms are falling apart, you know, that might be a priority for you. You know, in a lot of schools, bathrooms usually get the less love, right? You might want the hallways finely waxed, but if your bathrooms are falling apart, you need to prioritize what those needs are. And the wants, I always told my office staff they always wanted nice sofas and couches in the office, but my classrooms were falling apart. I was like, listen, the priority has to be the classrooms. We got to make sure that where the children are being educated, have smart, flat panels and smart boards, and good quality furniture, air conditioning, and before we can talk about putting sofas in the main office.
So how do you rotate? How do you, with the Title One money that you get, and whatever other source funding, your Title Three, whatever it might be, because of your EB students, um, how do you get extra funding from every Massachusetts, Texas, New York? We're all different funding. We all experience it different. So generally, since you said that you're in the lowest poverty district in the USA, what extra funding comes with that due to the nature of your environment?
Yeah, so I get Title One funding. I get school-wide projects monies. I get other types of funding. The reality is, those fundings usually go to mental health and those challenges that other schools don't have, right? So sadly, even though we get the extra funding, we need the extra guidance counselor, school counselor. We need the extra school aides in the cafeteria. We need the extra mentors in the school. So that funding goes primarily to meet the most challenging populations in the school. And then, we have to provide uniforms for our students. We want to compete with other schools that have uniforms. We have to provide uniforms for our families, because a family that has to choose between milk and uniform, they're going to pick milk. They're going to pick food, right? They're not going to worry about a uniform. So in order for me to keep the standards high and be able to compete with other schools, I have to be able to use the funding. But when talking about funding, I just want to share something that I don't know how it impacts where you're at, but when you're labeled a failing school, right? And usually schools that are labeled failing are the schools that just serve the most challenging communities, right? It's not really a failing school. It's a school that has high special needs, high L's. When you get that extra funding, right, and then you start to show success, they take away that funding, right? So you have to figure out how to compensate for that funding being taken away when you show success. So that's where partnerships come into play, and making sure. So like our school, in 2011, I was named Outstanding Educator for the country in 2011 by ASCD, when Obama was president. And that same year, they were labeling our school failing, which is contradictory, but it may this is the way the world works. So I did everything in my power. I got off the list, and immediately after I got off the list, what did they do? They took all the funding away. And then I went back on the list again, right? And I learned my lesson. I said, you know what? Now when I show success and they take away that funding, I have to have a replacement, because when you take away that funding, the arts go, social services go, sports go. So now I have like organizations like the New York Yankees paying for my arts programs. So it's like you have to be strategic, create those partnerships so that when you show success, the funding doesn't disappear.
Now, Principal Torres, I'm going to ask you this question. I'm listening carefully. I've been in the trenches a long time, and I love what I'm hearing. What systems did you put in place that turned your school around? And this is not a question that I have on my original script for you, but this is a question that I want all principals out there to hear. What did you tackle? What were like 2 or 3 things that you tackled to make your school go from a failing school to a school that was back on the map again?
Yeah, so basically what I did was I stopped focusing on just state exams.
Love that.
When you focus on literacy and mathematics
Love that.
only, you're missing the boat.
Yeah.
There's so many other needs our families have. I recently posted on social media, if you don't feed the children, they'll eat the teachers, right? They'll eat the
That's right.
teachers.
You're right.
Because that child in the back of the classroom that's hungry has a better lesson
You're right.
plan than the teacher. He's gonna get all the attention in the back of the classroom, and then what happens is the teacher kicks them out the room. They come to my office, I give them something to eat, and then I send them back, and they're back to normal. Sometimes it's understanding the needs of the children and having teachers who are empathetic, and you being empathetic yourself about how people are feeling, what they're going through. And I think that was the biggest change for our school. Now, we're back on that list again. And the reason why we're back on the list is because the pandemic hit harder certain communities than others. So now we'll get back off the list this year. We're back on track again. But we take those hits and we keep on going. When the pandemic hit, while other children were able to do their homework from their computers in their homes, my children had to go to the laundry mats to do their homework because they didn't have Wi-Fi. So we're back to normal now.
So you're reinventing connectivity for kids to be able to enter the learning, no matter where those access points are, man. And I think that's fantastic. And I think that, in my community right now, I don't deal with some of the same things you're dealing with, but I still think about how I moved the needle from good to great. And I'll tell you what, it's not easy. In lieu of, having a tremendous amount of funding, which we all don't have, we got to be creative and think outside the box. And thinking outside the box for a second, let's talk a little bit about the basic needs. If you can't meet the basic needs of your kids, just the real straight, flat out basic needs, how do you expect teachers to be able to teach them academics and have these kids grow? I know that's right in your wheelhouse, Luis. So why don't you take that and run with that for a minute?
About 20 years ago, actually, I'll say more like 16 years ago, when I started talking about whole child education, right? That's why ASCD recognized my work. Um, People thought I was talking about fluffy stuff. They were saying it's fluffy stuff. Sports is fluffy stuff. Arts is fluffy stuff. Doing those things is not going to get my children where they need to go. I need to just focus on literacy and mathematics. It's when I realized that there are 6 priorities that exist, and 5 of them come before education for a lot of our families: food, shelter, safety, health, access to technology come before education for a lot of our families. And once I started to realize that and I started to address those 5 basic needs, that's when I started to really truly have an impact. Because a lot of families come with those 5 basic needs and nobody addresses it. And the first thing we want to do is ask the child, where's their homework? But we don't even know where they slept last night. We don't even know if they ate over the weekend. But yet we want to ask them where's their homework. And the first thing that child wants to do is run out of the classroom, disrupt the class, or do something inappropriate. And then the next level is suspending the child. I haven't had a suspension in about 10 years since I've been doing this work.
That there speaks volumes about your ability to pivot and adjust and have restorative practices in place to ensure that kids understand that they're responsible for their own behavior, but more importantly, responsible for their own learning. What you're creating, Luis, is purpose and why. And when you do that as an administrator, what you get is a school that just hums. So I'm sure you can 100% agree with that, especially being in the same place for so long.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a pleasure for me to go to my school right now. Like, I am at my 19th year and I feel so much more excited about going into the school building. I mean, I could probably do this another 10 years. I don't know if my superintendent could live with me for 10 more years, but I think I could do 10 more years because I've created a culture in the school where the children want to come to the school, the families want to come to the school. The staff is excited about coming to the work, and every year I reinvent myself and the building. So it's just an exciting place to be.
I'm glad you said you reinvent yourself. That's part of the 5 R's that I say to all of my teachers anyway at the end of each year. But talk about that for a second, okay? Just very, very simply put, how do you create that purpose and why in your school? Just a couple of things that you've done over the years. Guess what? It's not easy. It's not. You've gone from a failing school to a school that has got the grade to where they need to go backwards a little bit because of lack of resources. But at the end of the day, you create a reason for kids to be there. What is that all about? And talk a little bit about your staff, if you could, please.
Yeah, so first off, I read a book that changed my thinking about life and things, and that was Thinking Like Da Vinci. Da Vinci believed that you needed to remain as a child as far as your thinking, right, and keep a pure mindset, and then you see the world differently. And I always try to view the world from the eyes of the students I serve, right? And I always say, what would they want to have in the school? What would the families want in the school? That's why the hospital was so important because, when you serve a community where there's a lot of health issues, it just made it easier for the families to be in attendance in the school. It made it easier for the parents to be able to make appointments. And then now, we look at other things. So I created a soccer stadium in the schoolyard recently. Why? Because I have a large influx of migrants coming in from all over, and this is the sport they play. They play soccer. I got to start calling it football because I keep getting in trouble, but they play soccer. And we got the Mexican families coming in. We have a lot of African families coming in, and this is the sport. We still do basketball because that's a big part of our culture and our community, but soccer has now become a major sport. And shifts like that make it so instrumental. And next year we're going to be opening up a hip hop music studio because hip hop was started in the Bronx, and we're creating a music studio in the basement of the school so that I can teach the children not only to rap, but they need to know the engineering part of the work as far as the marketing as well. And then the last project that I'm working on now, which is like the most recent thing I'm planning to do, is building a gaming room. The gaming industry is an industry that a lot of our children are not getting into, and we need to get them involved in it. And believe it or not, like Minecraft tournaments and all of this stuff that generates billions of dollars each year. And we got to get our children, and they love it. Believe me, when I tell the children, because I'm a gamer myself, so I tell the children, if you have perfect attendance, you get to play me in Madden. You got to see how my attendance goes up, because the children want to do that. And you got to be fun with it. Like I thought when I become an administrator, I'll stop being around the children. I think I'm more with the children now than ever before.
Now, you're in a middle school right now, or you're in high school?
No, I'm elementary.
You're elementary, even better. So K to what?
Yeah, no, I'm a 3K. So I have 3-year-olds to
Yeah.
fifth grade, but
Well, so pre-K to grade 5.
3K to
Yeah,
grade
I
5.
call them pre-K. Yeah, but I get that. I like 3K better. Wow, wow.
Yeah, but you know what people have to understand is that my elementary school is almost a middle school because the children are exposed to so much trauma. They have to grow up faster. So some of those issues that you would see in middle school, I have to create boy groups, girl groups in elementary school. I never thought I would have to do that, but we do it because they have challenges and they have a lot of trauma that we have to face. And the gangs are always trying to recruit elementary school children, so I got to educate them on other things as well.
Man,
But yeah.
you're doing so many great things right there, and I love your thinking outside the box. It's innovative, it's creative. What I call that is future thinking leadership. And I'll tell you, as long as you do that, your school will just keep on chugging along. Great stuff right there, Josh.
So you dropped a Hiroshima there, said, "Oh, the Yankees paid for this," and then you dropped a Nagasaki. Oh, I have a soccer stadium here, and
How's
then
that happen? Wait a second.
my brain over here is like, he just said he was at the poorest district in the country. So that goes to your philosophy of hustling and begging for your kids,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
All right. So, hey, again, you got this brand new assistant principal or principal in Nevada. He just got in there to a lower socioeconomic area. Talk to him about the hustling for your kids. Talk to him about getting the New York Yankees to pay for your stuff. Teach him.
Yeah, I mean, I tell people you got to be a hustler and beggar, because when you hustle and beg for others, it's okay. I'm not outside begging for money for myself. I don't have no problem going to the local bodega, the local grocery store, and saying, you know what, I have an event in the school. Would you be willing to donate, X number of bottles of water or whatever? I have no problem because I'm not asking for myself. And again, we have to be out there. If you stay in your office and your school doesn't reach out to the greater community around, you're missing out on a lot of great opportunities. If you're in a city or state that has a huge sports team, and if you don't know who the community relations person is of that organization, then you need to go out there and know who that person is. Every organization has a community relations person. They make the life easier for you. Like right now in my school, what I've done is I've created a team of hustlers. Right? I can't hustle no more. Right? It's about creating a
You're
team.
just thinking forward. You're thinking
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah, I have a whole team. So like right now for the pandemic, right? You have a new principal inherit to school. They're trying to figure out how to keep the one-on-one ratio of devices to child, right? You want to make sure every single child has a device. You know what? Get a team of 10 teachers, have each of those teachers do a donors choose, requesting 20 laptops. You get 10 teachers requesting 20 laptops, you're going to get 200 laptops in your school building. That's 200 children that will have a device now, right? If your school is 400 children, you just provided devices to half your population. And Donors Choose is an organization that is always supporting the schools. I don't know if you guys utilize that where you're at, but it's a great resource. It's a website. One teacher can create the the request and share it with the other teachers, and now you have a whole bunch of requests out there and people donate, and the money's out there. It's a matter of us wanting to beg and hustle. The soccer stadium, I got it because I have a soccer program in my school, and I told the guy who runs the soccer program, we got to do better. I can't have my children playing in fields full of, dog feces and stuff. And he said, we got to figure out what to do. And we started asking people for funding. And then, he wound up getting a donor, and we got the field fully funded privately. We didn't even have to worry about school budgets or anything. But it's a matter of you putting yourself out there, asking. I go on social media. I use myself to sell my school on social media. That's how people know about my school. And I get a lot of donations just by begging and hustling on a regular basis.
And that's that I feel you. That's a great stuff right there. And you know what, Luis? Getting into the aspect of why we do it. Again, the show that Dean and Chris created is to educate
And Josh, you never give yourself credit, man. You're so
others
deeply
across
entrenched.
others across the United States, is to get those tools to sharpen them up, because they might see this, and they got an OG in you, Luis, that brings a lot to the table. You know what? You and I are mainly in areas. I cannot speak for Dean, but in areas of high poverty, emergent bilinguals don't speak English. We don't have that. So how can we educate people that are not within our sphere? And our kids travel. You know that our kids move around a lot, and they go to, let's say, Iowa, North Carolina. How can administrators and teachers identify these inequities? We see it every day with the broken glasses, with the area that we live around. We see the inequity. We live inequity. We are inequity. But what
First,
about those other people?
yeah, so I once had a lady come into my school and she said, Torres, why would I invest in your neighborhood? It's not my neighborhood. Why would I invest in your neighborhood? I said, because if you don't invest in my neighborhood, these kids will be robbing your kids. And the lady woke up. Sometimes you got to make it real for people. They don't understand how real it is. In my book, in the 6 priorities, I had a chapter where I start off with a story from George Steinbrenner, the owner of the Yankees. His family had visited my school, and I had Hank Steinbrenner come to the school, and we're walking around the building, and we go into a pre-K classroom, and we feel like it's cold in there, and when we look up, there's bullet holes in the window, and you had tears in his eyes. Like, the owner of the Yankees had tears in his eyes saying, what can I do, to help your community more? Sometimes you got to make it real for people. But anybody could use this book. Anybody could use this book. It doesn't matter if you have all the resources you think you need. This book can help schools that have a lot of funding think outside of the box, because it's not about everything that you have and all the resources you have. There's always something innovative that you can bring to your school that you might not have thought of, and this book can bring that to life to you. And this is how I think. Anybody in this world that's running a school can benefit from this. I have a group of students from a high school called Collegiate. This is a high school in Manhattan, New York, of students that, the tuition for that high school tuition is over $100,000 a semester or year, right? These young men adopted my school. I told them about my school, and they came to my school. And you got to see, now they want a soccer stadium like mine, even though they're in a collegiate school. The way I have my soccer stadium created, they want to replicate that now in their area. So it doesn't matter like how many resources a school has. It's about creating structures for all children to be successful, whether they have these six priorities or not. They can benefit from learning about what to do for their children.
Louis, can I ask you a question, Josh? And I'm sorry to step on your toes if you want to go there. Talk to me about your staff, because your staff must be amazing. You're telling me you're dealing with some of the lowest, the most impoverished people in the country. They are the ones who have to connect. Just very briefly, just dig into that a little bit for me, because as a principal, I love nothing more than the sharing the glory to the people who deserve it, which are the teachers. So go ahead.
Absolutely. So before the pandemic, I had gone a string of almost 10 years with zero turnover. Right before the pandemic, I took a big hit with the pandemic because I had some teachers who decided not to get the vaccine. And in New York, if you didn't get the vaccine, you were laid off. So we lost four solid teachers that one time. And then we lost a few teachers to retirement. We're building our staff back up again to where we were before the pandemic. But I have a lot of creative staff members, teachers. During the pandemic, I had teachers that were the ones that were starting that Instagram movement to do read alouds to children in the evening. I had teachers going to the homes of the children, providing food. I mean,
Listen here.
I had incredible teachers, and now that we're building up the school in a different direction with a sports and arts focus, I have teachers who have stepped up to become coaches. I have teachers who have designed the new logos for the school. It's always the forward thinking. I have teachers talking about AI, and it's always nice to have creative people. And when you have a school full of creative teachers, and I have a school full of hustlers as well. They go out there and get those resources, and I love it. They make me look good when they go out there and put in a donors choose application and get like a computer lab worth of computers for the school. So it's a matter of the staff being a reflection of what you want for your school and the vision that you have for the school.
Well, over 18 years, I hate to say this, but you had a lot to do with the people that sit in those chairs through your hiring processes, looking for the it factor, looking for the match for your community and your kids. So kudos to you for finding those individuals who not only are drinking the Kool-Aid about what you're preaching, but more importantly, connecting with kids to a very high level and seeing the fruits of their labor, man. I love that. Retention of staff is everything about a great leader.
And what's my greatest accomplishment right now? I have two of my former students, two African young ladies, are now teaching in the school. One teaches fourth grade math, and the other one's going to open up a kindergarten classroom for me next year. And these are two former students that are now teaching in the school. And I have over 15 of my former students. They work in the school as school aides, paraprofessionals, teachers aides, and other positions. So I have about, I would say, a good 17 to 20 of my staff are former students.
That's great stuff right there. Louis, tell us a little bit about your book. Hold that book up again and tell us, why did you write a book? And more importantly, what did you learn about the whole step process of writing a book, about yourself as a person and also as an educational leader?
Absolutely. So the book became about because I do a lot of speaking engagements. I now became the president of the New York City Elementary School Principals Association. I lead a lot of different organizations. I'm part of ASCD. I'm part of the Con Fellows in New York. And I do a lot of talking engagements around what I call community matching and the six priorities. So I got tired of talking. I said, I talk too much. It's time to give the people out there the hustler's guide, I call it. This is the hustler's guide. This is the beggar's guide on how to get those resources you need for your community. And I just created the book. I made it very simple. You can read this book probably in a week, in a good week. But you're not going to want to just put it away, because it's almost like a handbook, right? So, but it's a handbook, but with real life stories in it, right? So it's a very unique way of writing. I did this purposely because I wanted people not only to have a handbook, but also to feel what it is to be that hustler and beggar from my perspective. And it's been highly successful. The problem I have in New York is that everything's a conflict of interest. So it's hard for me to promote in New York, but everywhere else is starting to pick up. And people are starting to realize that, what, they need this book in order for them to do the work that they need to. And as a new principal, you pick up this book and it's going to help you to shape your school. It's going to help you to match those resources with the needs. And it's also going to help you to create a plan of action. So the book is based on the community matching process. And the community matching process is a 30-minute process. I tell people that after the 30 minutes of going through this process, they have a plan to get those resources they need. So it's something I view as one of my greatest accomplishments aside from having my children.
Hey, Louis, one more question, Josh. I'm gonna kick it to you. I know you're thinking over there. What's the next step for Principal Torres? Where do you see yourself going, man? You're guiding a school with lack of resources. You're creating connection for kids. You're creating a place where teachers want to work. Think about this for a second, man. You've got it all working in your favor. Talk to me. What's the next 3 to 5 years for you look like?
Yeah, so 2 weeks ago, I had an eye-opening experience. I literally had a street named after me.
Oh,
Literally a street named after me on the Grand Concourse in front of the Bronx Supreme Court. They call it the Bronx Walk of Fame. Normally, celebrities or people who are very famous get on that Walk of Fame. I was the first educator ever inducted into that Walk of Fame. And I said, my father just recently had a street named after him. And then I follow up and have a street named after me. And I said to myself, now I can die. I was like, wow, I got my flowers while I'm alive. I always hated the fact that my father got his flowers when he passed away. And I said, you know what? What's next for me? Like, what can I accomplish next that's gonna top all these things that I've done? And I said, what's next for me is that I want to make sure that every single child that I touch from here on out is highly successful in life. So how am I going to do that? I'm going to continue to raise the bar in my school. I'm going to have more resources coming in. I'm going to be even more creative. But also, I was just recently named master principal. So as a master principal in the Department of Education, I will be working very closely with 5 to 10 principals to try to replicate what I've been doing in my school in those 5 to 10 schools. So at the end of the day, like I said earlier, it's about how much you have impact in the world. Like for me, success is measured on how many people you can impact. And now with this new title, I will have a greater impact than even being a principal of my school. So I have a dual role. I'll be the principal of my school, plus I'll be supporting 5 to 10 principals across the Bronx, as well as the president of NYSESPA, which is the New York City Elementary School Principals Association, supporting 800 principals across the city of New York.
Not only that, TED Talks, talking about your book, talking about creating ripples on social media. You're not done, man. And I admire that so much because beyond sitting in our seat, it's about what we give back to the people who are going to fill our shoes later on. Okay. And again, you're setting the table for the future leaders in public schools. So, man, so cool. Great stuff right there. JT, what do you think about that?
I just drop mic.
Drop the mic and run.
Ya no se dice nada más. You don't say anything else because that, ladies and gentlemen, says no excuses for kids.
Yeah, no excuses,
That
man.
means that young man right there has proven that irregardless, it's not about money. It's about your leadership. It's about hustling. It's about spotlighting the kids, not the adults' needs.
Yep.
Drop mic. It's about becoming a master principal by that hard work and dedication and inspiring not only within your state but across the United States. So all I can say is whenever you feel that you're complaining about your scores, about your kids being poor, about all that, drop mic. You've got the man right there. And there's tons of others out there that put in the work and make their school successful because they're all tier ones. I mean, they're all what is that again?
Title one.
Title One. Thank you very much. Moment right there. Title One schools, and there's no excuse. And you've proven it. I've learned a lot from you, Luis, today. It's awesome. Iron sharpens iron, and I appreciate you for that because you're the symbol of success for the people that sit in our chair. About no excuses. And if you can't handle the heat, get out of the kitchen because the kids need an awesome chef cooking for them. And what do you think about that, Dean Packard?
I think the chef has cooked up a great meal for everybody tonight. Louis, final statements tonight, man. Anything you want to say to any new educators out there? Anybody aspiring to become a leader? What would you tell them, man?
Yeah, I tell them, we need you now. This is the moment. This is the moment. Education is a dying field.
Yeah.
Education is a dying field, and there's an attack on public education right now. And we have to fight because we're the schools that serve the most challenging children. And if you pick up this book here, you get me. You get me with this book, right? And if you need to reach out to me, people will tell you. I don't care what state you're in. I don't care where you're at. If you have a question, if you need me for anything, I'm there for you. Because at the end of the day, if I'm the only one that's showing success and everybody else is not doing the work, we're all failing. We all have to rise together. And that's why, I love what you guys are doing here because you're helping to elevate the voice and you're supporting principals like myself who usually don't get the support. And I appreciate the both of you. And anything I could ever do to support, I'm here.
You're in our network, man. You be careful of saying that because Josh will reach out to you every day. That's what he does, man. He just stays connected. Hey, really great stuff.
Hey, we're not there. Hey, whoa, what? No, sir, we're not done. We're not done. Thursday night, 9 p.m. Eastern. The Red Zone. Leadership Roundtable. Different type of out there educators reflecting on 23-24. So make sure that you join us. Drop in your comments, like, and share. We're here together because iron sharpens iron. See you this Thursday for the Red Zone, 9 p.m. Eastern. Let's go home, Dean Packard.
I'll tell you what. Thank you once again, everybody. Principal Torres, I'll tell you, you have inspired me beyond what you think you could inspire a 30-year guy in this business, man. 21 years in leadership. I am stoked. I'm leaving here smiling, saying this man right here gets it. So thank you so much for bestowing all that knowledge on us. And more importantly, the systems that you've created to make your children feel worth and value in your school and your staff have purpose and why. Think about the importance of all of that. Just great stuff right there. Hey, everybody, have a wonderful week. On behalf of Principal Torres and Principal Tovar from the state of Texas and Bronx. Hey, I didn't ask you something. Red Sox or Yankees? Come on, man.
Yeah,
Come on, Principal Torres.
You're asking a Bronxite that question.
I am asking, man. I wanted to hear what you said.
Listen, I'm a Yankees fan,
all right,
Mets fan, New York
I could have said
fan,
Mets
all
or
the
Yankees because the Mets are right around the corner.
Yeah, so I'm a Mets Yankee fan. So
all right, fair enough. Bad question. Sorry, I won't end on that note. But I will tell you what: great principle, great ideology, great way of thinking. JT, did I miss anything?
We got it. Let's go home.
Let's go home, baby. Have a great week, everybody. Principal Torres, stay on for one moment. Take care of those kids. Be well, everybody. Thanks for joining us.